Good morning, guys. My name's Sandy. This is Sawing with Sandy. Right behind me, you guys can see, is my Woodland Mills HM130max. I'm going to be adding on something that you guys have asked me about in the comments probably for the last several weeks, maybe even since I got the sawmill. And that is whether I'm going to add a laser onto my sawmill like I had on my old HM130, my 2017 model. The answer is yes, and I'm going to do that today. What I'm going to do is try to figure out a way to mount two lasers this time. And I'm talking about, you know, the green laser line that you can use to estimate your cuts with. I'm going to add two of those here today. And hopefully, instead of having them powered off of a battery pack, like I did on my older sawmill, what I'm going to do is have it powered off the 12-volt power supply, the battery, which is on my HM130max, typically used for starting. I'm hoping to do that because that's going to eliminate that, I guess, that battery issue you guys would have seen me have periodically when I forgot to get the batteries charged, forgot to bring them out, and all that jazz. So what we're going to do, try to get everything hooked up today, run it off the battery. I'm going to have a switch as well. And that way, when I don't want the lasers on, I can turn them off. When I want them on, I can turn them on. Now let's just talk about why one would want lasers on their sawmill. Now, it's not anything fancy. It's not going to actually cut the wood. But what it's going to do, at least in my opinion, is help me to estimate where the first cut's going to be so that I can reduce the amount of waste. You guys would have seen me, if you've seen other videos, come out here with a tape measure. And I typically hold the tape measure up and I get nice and low and I try to figure out how high I want the first cut to be. Now, sometimes I guess great, sometimes I guess bad, and I have more waste or poor cut than I originally wanted. And so I'm going to get the lasers in place. It'll broadcast the line and that'll help me with that first cut. Now, why I want two lasers is this. I also want a laser on this side because if you guys recall, there's these things, log stops, that most people like to hit with their blade by accident, and I'm not alone. I haven't hit this one on this sawmill yet, but I'm probably bound to. And so I want to have a laser line so that when I hit the switch, it's going to broadcast a line down this side of the sawmill and I can see whether I'm going to hit the log stops or not. Just a little bit of reassurance on my part, and what the heck. We'll put two lasers on, see what it looks like. I'm brand new to putting lasers on this sawmill because this sawmill is new to me. And so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error here today. Just one last thing before we get down to work. Let's see what parts we're dealing with. And so have a look-see here. Here's what I'm going to be installing. And if you want to see what particular laser modules I'm using, there it is. All right, so you guys can see it's the, well, you can see it's the apenex.com is the place I got these from. You can see the temperature operation range, -10 Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. I purposely wanted a laser module that could go in the cold and warm. This is what the mounting system is going to look like. A little bit different than my previous laser setup. Get that wire out of the way. You guys can see this is going to be mounted to the sawmill. It's highly adjustable. All right, and then you can see the actual laser module, which is in the mount. So that's going to ultimately get wired in. One thing we're going to have to do, if you guys have a little look-see at this, we're going to have to use this thing, which is a converter. This is also sold by apenex.com. Everything here is except the switch and the fuses I got from apenex.com. I don't particularly remember where I got the inline fuses or the switch, but maybe they sell those as well. I don't know. Back to the converter. I have to use a converter because I have to convert from the power source, the 12 volts, and get it down to, what does it say here? 3 to 5 volts for each laser module. So I'm going to use this converter. It's going to help me drop that voltage down, making sure that it works correctly for the lasers. And because it's my first time with this, we'll see how this all works. Glad you guys are here. Let's get down to work. All right, I think the first one I'm going to mount over here, and it'll be something like that. I want to get the laser out as far as possible so it gives the longest line down the log. And so I'll probably mount it something like that. I'm going to have to drill 3 holes here. And I just want to make sure that when I mount this, this laser, the center, so the center of that mount is lined up with where the blade is. So I'm going to take a straight edge in a minute, and I'm just going to make a mark over here so I know where the blade is, and that way I can line it up and down, so at least I'm close. Now with these adjustments here, you guys can see them. I'm going to be able to do some fine tuning after, which is great, but at the very least I want to be close to start with. So that's going to be that one, and let's see where the other one's going to go. So this side's a little bit different because I have the holes for where the sawdust comes out. I'm not going to be able to mount it like that, otherwise the sawdust will just get all over this thing. If I mount it up higher, there's another bolt here. If I go too high, I'm going to be in interference with the bucket, and so actually the bucket would still interfere if it was down here. So my only option here, it looks like, is going to be right on the front, and that's probably what I'll do. I'll put something like this. Obviously it'll be adjusted a little bit. I can't go underneath as well, just for those people who are wondering, because that's where the holes are for the sawdust to come out. So I think the best spot is right there. That'll still give me a nice look down the log with the laser. And when I open the door, obviously the laser will go with it. So I just got to remember to make sure I've got enough wire there. Who's going to remind me not to drive this into the blade? Whoa, that was close. I'm just putting the one bolt through right now, just in case I don't get the holes lined up perfectly. Get it. Oh, get on there. I'll put a split washer on there. And you guys will laugh, but I'm actually going to put Loctite on there as well. We'll tighten that up, and now I'll put the holes in, and I can guarantee the holes are going to be in the right spot. Okay guys, well, here's what I'm thinking. So I've got my wire here. I just took some of the insulation off the ends. I forgot to get the attachments or the connectors from the wire to the actual battery. I'll have to get those after, but that'll go to the battery eventually once I get everything hooked up. First things first, I think the converter here, now this converts the 12 volt voltage down to, what is it, 3.3 volts. So that's what we're going for. I'm going to mount this probably on the back side there, then it'll be protected, I don't know, maybe a little bit by the elements here. So I'm just going to zip tie it there. The wire right here, after I cut it, will connect there. That'll be the input. The output here, as I said, 3.3 volts. This is going to then go to each of the laser modules. But before it goes to those laser modules, I'm going to run an actual switch so I can turn the lasers on and off, and we'll put a fuse in here somewhere. So that's the plan, and we just got to put her into place. Okay, that's pretty good. I might come back and use a stronger zip tie if this doesn't look like it's going to work, but I'd say it's going to be fine. Just got to remember there's the output, there's the input. Hey, looks like it works. Don't mind the mess here. I wanted to make sure everything worked before I permanently make the connections. Although I'm relatively confident in my electrical work here, if I were to mess something up, it's a lot easier just to fix it than permanently connecting it and hoping. Anyways, let me just try this switch to make sure this switch works. And by the way, the lasers did come on. That's what I was looking for. So far so good. Come around the other side here. You guys can see the switch is off right now, and so when I apply the red wire to the hot terminal, they should stay off. Just got to make sure none of the connections are going to touch here. All right, let's try that again. So the switch is off. Nothing's happening, which is perfect. Let's turn the switch on. One more time. All right, and you guys can see there. Maybe you can't see. You guys see the laser there? You guys see that? That's what we're going for. I don't want to shine it right at you, but you guys get the point there. So the switch works. Both lasers are on. I installed an inline fuse. That way, if something goes wrong, who knows with my wiring, I don't want the laser modules to get ruined. So anyways, all looks good at this point. Just going to button it up just a little bit. If you guys want to come back around here, you can see that's kind of sketchy, as I said. So I'm going to put some permanent connections on there. That's going to be my switch. And obviously this is a bit sketchy, as I mentioned. In behind here, you guys have a look up there, right up there. You guys can see my converter. So that is taking my 12 volts from my battery, reducing it down to, I think, about 3 volts out the other end. And that's hooked up to both of these lasers. And obviously that's got to be adjusted just a little bit, which we'll do in just a minute. You guys will see me using these, and I realize it's not the proper tool. I just don't have a set of proper tools for this, and so I'm using what I have. When I push down here, I'm not actually pushing hard, otherwise it would just cut the wire. I'm just pushing enough so that underneath this pink insulation, the metal conductor is being collapsed enough so that when I put the rest of the pliers on it, it'll grab onto the wire on both sides nicely. And I put a good effort in there. And there we go. We got a good connection. All right, we got the main power coming off the 12-volt battery there. That's all tied in nicely. The switch is there. I'm going to make some sort of a bracket, and I think I'm going to put the bracket right about here. Then I can use these existing bolts and probably sandwich something in there, and I don't know, maybe have the switch right there. I've got this wire protector. This stuff is so expensive. I don't know what you guys pay for it here in Central Ontario, Canada. I went to Canadian Tire. I paid 10 bucks Canadian for this. I don't even know how long it is. Doesn't even tell me. It's a 1/4 inch in diameter. They probably don't tell you how long it is because then you wouldn't buy it. 10 bucks right there. I don't know what that is in US funds, but check that out. I don't know. It's like, how long is that? Probably 10 feet. So it's like $1 a foot. Add in tax, it's like $1.25 a foot. Crazy. Anyways, that's my little rant. Let's wrap the wires in this stuff. And then what we'll do is we will button it up with some zip ties. I'm just putting these in loose right now. I'm not really sure where I want things to go. And that way I can position it, use the sawmill, check for clearance, and then button everything up permanently once I'm sure. Don't laugh. I ran out of wire protector. Look at that. It's a beautiful thing. I just put the slit that I just cut in this garden hose, I put it facing down. If for whatever reason condensation or moisture gets in here, gravity will bring it to the bottom, then it'll drip out the bottom. I don't like using garden hose, to be honest, but you use what you have at the time, and this is what I have, and I don't exactly live next door to the store. And so I figured, hey, it'll work. There we go. All right, guys, I'd say that was a success. I ended up getting both lasers mounted. I got all the wiring run. I got it hooked up to a switch. I hid the switch right in here for now. I'm not sure if I'm going to make a mount of some sort, but that's where it's going to be. My thinking was this: when it's wintertime, when it's raining, I might not always be under that shelter, and so maybe I should have that wiring, that switch protected, because let's face it, that's just an inexpensive 12-volt switch. And so if we look at the contour here on the mill, you guys see how we have this sort of built-in overhang? I took advantage of that by putting the switch right in there. So I just reach my finger in, and then I can turn it on and turn it off, obviously. So that's going to be how I get the lasers to work. On the back side, it's okay. The wiring's hidden. It's not visible from the front. The same thing goes. It's underneath this overhang. Yeah, an electrician could probably do it better, but I think I did a half decent job. You'll also notice on the back, I still have accessible the inline fuse. If this fuse ever blows, I want to have access to it, obviously. And so I would just reach under there and take care of it. Now, looking at the actual lasers over here, I just have to set them up, and I'm going to do that in just a minute. But we have the wire protectors here. And in terms of the positioning of where the wire runs, I tried to choose a spot that was going to allow for the up and down movement of the saw, of the saw head without interfering and pulling on the wires. I think this was the best choice. Now, if it turns out not to be the best choice, I'll obviously move it. It's just some zip ties. But as you can see, the wire goes up there, runs right under there, comes up here, and right along the back side there. of this green piece of steel. Same thing on the other side here. You guys can see the laser. I'm just in the process of setting it up. You guys can see the wire protector here goes up likewise the same way. And if you guys have a look up there, you can see it ties into the back there. One last thing. This piece here, as I said, was not ideal. It's a garden hose, but I didn't have a wire protector, so I wanted to get something on there. And that comes up and right around back just like the others. So that's how the wiring is run. Powered off the 12-volt battery, which is great. And I think the last thing we're going to do here is set up the actual lasers. And so here's how I'm going to do that. Some of you guys suggested this to me a long time ago with my laser on my old sawmill. And I thought, you know what, let's put it into action today. I took what I had out here, and this is just a scrap piece of 4x4. I made some marks on it on 3 sides, right there, there, and likewise right there. That mark is at 8 inches. What I did was I set my scale at 8 inches. I made sure that the blade was 8 inches from the log bunk. And now I'm going to turn on the lasers. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to aim it so that the laser shoots a line across that and across that mark. That way I know it's in perfect alignment, and then we'll repeat the process on the other side. All right, I just switched the laser on. And this is my first time with this adjustment here, so I want to get it good to start here. Might be hard to see. I think you can see it all right though. There we go. So see how it's going right through both lines? That's what we're looking for right there. So I'm just snugging that up for now. Whoops, must have bumped it. Get back there. Just going to take a little bit of learning on my part, just because I haven't used this mount. I'm not used to what the adjustments do, but I'd say that looks quite good right there. Okay, so then we'll go on to the other side here. And keep in mind the laser's still on here. And so you guys can see here, obviously the laser's pointing out here. We got to get it adjusted appropriately. So I'm just going to adjust it like this for now. And you guys see on the piece of wood over there? You guys see that all right? Obviously that's not ideal, so I'm going to use the Allen keys, or the set screws, or whatever you want to call it. And we'll adjust the laser, because I haven't even done this yet. There we go. So we'll get it in the ballpark, like so. I'll snug that up after. All right, guys, it just dawned on me that I probably should use 2 of these 4x4s with marks on them. That way, when I'm aligning the laser, I can make sure that it's not tilted back or downwards. If you guys can imagine, if the lasers are hitting on the mark on both pieces, that means that the laser is going to be parallel to the sawmill bed. That's what we're looking for. Otherwise, you might turn the lasers on. It might look good right about here, but down there, the line is way up or way down. And so I put those 2 blocks there. That's just what I had at the time. I think it's going to look all right. You guys can see here, we're hitting the mark there, and we're hitting the mark right there. Okay, so that's good for this laser over here. And on this side, with this laser, you guys can see, it's kind of hard to see in the direct sun, but you can still see it. We're hitting the mark there, we're hitting the mark there. And on this side, we're hitting the mark there. And kind of hard to see, as I said, in the direct sunlight, but it's right there. So we're hitting the mark on all of them. One thing I'm going to point out to you guys, if you're sort of diving into this laser world, it is going to take you a little bit of time to get the alignment correct. These these brackets here, they've got lots of adjustment on them, but sometimes more is not better. I'm having a hard time getting it set correctly. I'm sure with a little bit of practice, that'll be no problem. But anyways, we got it all adjusted. It looks good. I think the real benefit for this comes from when we lower the saw head to start cutting. I'm going to lower the saw head right now to 3.5 inches. I know for certain the log stops are set to 4 inches, both of them. I know that because of these lines. You guys can check out what those lines mean in a previous episode. 1, 2, 3, and 4 inches. That's the numbers. So if we drop the saw head down to 3.5 inches, All right, and we'll just raise it up to 3.5 right there. This is the real benefit, I think, of having a laser on this side in addition to the other side. So see on this side, it puts a line out, and I'll make sure not to stand in it. Well, look at this. It puts it out right onto the top of the log stop. That right there is a quick visual for me, telling me I'm gonna hit that log stop. And you'll have to take my word on it here. I'll put a bit of a shadow. You guys see the line right there? It's popping up on that log stop. That's telling me I'm gonna hit that one as well. So in addition to putting a line out, it's gonna tell me I'm hitting the log stop. The laser on this side is not so much for log stops because I can't see them through the log, but it's gonna tell me where my first cut's gonna be. If we look right here, you guys can see the laser showing up right there, right? So it's got a pretty wide beam here. In fact, look at it. See the pointed direction? It shows up right there, okay? Let's get these out of the way. And one thing I'll point out here, I don't have any safety glasses on that would protect me from that laser, so I'm definitely aware that they're on. When I'm operating these lasers in the future, what I plan on doing is coming back here, turning it on, having a quick look from here, having a quick look from here, and not actually going in front of the lasers with it turned on. I will turn it off, cut, and then they'll stay off. So I'll just turn it on for that quick visual at the start. Anyways, let's fire this thing up, see how it cuts. I think this is probably going to, it's probably gonna make a 5-inch first cut. So let's pop it up here just a little. Okay, there's 5 inches. And although it is in the full sunlight, we can see best back here. It's a little hard to see up here because of that sunlight. And you guys can see there it is there. So that's telling me where the cut's gonna be made. If I didn't like that, I would bump it up a little bit more or down, whatever I wanted, and go from there. So as you're about to see here, it provides that first cut. Nice visual, but besides that, it's not really gonna be used for the majority of the cuts. Let's fire up. right, guys, aside from being hot out here, I had a really good time getting this set up here today. As you can see, we got it wired in fully. I don't know if it quite looks factory set yet, but it looks half decent to me. Now, one thing, if you're going to go down this route and look at getting lasers, you just want to pay special attention to the mounts. Periodically, what was happening was the mounts were moving a little bit, especially when I fired up the sawmill. So if you guys can imagine, I had them perfectly set. I started the engine, and some of the vibrations with the sawmill caused some of the mounts to move just a little bit. And if you weren't aware of that, well, you could assume the blade is going to cut where it's not, and that could lead to a problem. So you just got to be careful with that. I'm not sure if over time I will develop a bit more skill and maybe awareness of these mounts and be able to tighten them up a bit better. But for now, I'm going to have to play around with that a little bit just to make sure that they are perfectly tight and they stay where they need to be. Because obviously, if these move at all on you and you don't catch it, well, you're going to pay the price, and it might be the cost of a log stop and a blade. So we don't want that. Anyways, great time out here today. I'm going to put details about this laser down below. As I said, this is not my first go around with these lasers. I've tried them before on my old sawmill. This is, though, my first go around with that mount. The mount has a lot more adjustability than my old sawmill, my old lasers on the sawmill. And so that'll be something, as I mentioned, to play around with. What I'd suggest to you guys, as I said, if you're interested in this, read up on it, but be sure to come back next time. I'm going to try to perfect it a little bit, show you guys exactly how it could be used on a day-to-day basis like I plan on doing. So all around, good day, guys. I appreciate you joining me. Take care, be well, get out, do some sawing, and I'll see you next time.